My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my ranking of the Disney live action remakes from worst to best. And this video will have spoilers, so there's your warning. But I am not a fan of this trend where studios remake animated movies into live action for two reasons. The first is typically the animated original is better. And secondly, and the bigger reason is that I just find it to be disrespectful towards animation as a medium. Like, it feels like the studio is saying, oh, you're not a real movie, but now we're going to turn you into a real movie. And I really despise that mindset. But I'm going to be honest though, this marathon wasn't as bad as I was expecting. Like, it's pretty 50-50, but liking 50% of these movies is a lot more than I was expecting. So let's begin by talking about the worst one. And if you were to ask me, Gavin, what are the three worst movies of all time? I would say Son of the Mask, Scary Movie 5, and the worst Disney live action remake, The Lion King. I love the original. That movie has a great story, it has great characters, it looks beautiful, it has depth, it has emotion. It's just a perfect movie. And yeah, like, technically it's the same story, and technically it's the same characters, but it just feels so soulless. So while you're watching it, it's the same movie to a degree, but it just feels empty. And I thought this was just a miserable watch from beginning to end. And it doesn't help that all the animals look realistic. So whenever they're talking, they can't emote. So yeah, I just despised this movie. I despise what it represents. And we really didn't need a scene that focuses on poop for a couple minutes. We really didn't need that. So I think this is one of the worst movies ever made, and that's why it's the worst one. The second worst Disney live action remake is Mulan, and I love the original. That movie has a great story, it has great characters, it has emotion, it has great songs, and I just love how Mulan proves herself and becomes a strong warrior by the end of that movie. But here they change stuff where she's the chosen one and where she has special abilities. And by doing that, you're getting rid of everything that's special about this story. Like, you just destroyed it. With that one decision, you destroyed everything that this story represents. And I found it to be a truly baffling decision. And I think this movie looks ugly. I thought the action sucked. And it's just a flat, miserable experience. So there's nothing good about it. Just awful. So that's why it's the second worst. The third worst is Pinocchio, and I love the original Pinocchio. It's actually one of my favorite Disney movies because I think it's filled with depth, it's smart storytelling, there's emotion, there's iconic songs, and the characters are well defined, but this movie is just none of that. They butchered the story once again, and I love so much of Robert Zemeckis' movies. I love the Back to the Future trilogy, The Polar Express, Castaway, um, The Walk, a recent one, Heel. The guy is a great talent, but I don't know what he was thinking with this movie. The CGI is absolutely hideous and it's void of any artistic merit. And I also hate how this movie lacks any bit of edge. Like, the original movie is kinda scary. Here, not at all. And I really hated the ending. It felt like they couldn't make up their mind. So, this is another 0 out of 10 movie. The fourth worst one is Aladdin. And Aladdin is my favorite Disney movie ever, and it's one of my favorite movies ever. It's just pure perfection from beginning to end, and like, yes, it's technically the same story and the same characters, but it's a soulless version of it, and it just makes for a very difficult watch. Like, this movie is so boring and flat and bland throughout, and you think it might pick up a bit when Jafar gets the magic lamp, and no, they refuse to do anything interesting with this movie. And in the original, the Sultan, the magic carpet, Iago, Abu, great side characters, but here they're void of any personality, and I thought the movie looked hideous. It's terribly directed by Guy Ritchie. It lacks any bit of an edge. It's way too long, and you feel every minute of it. And most of the songs suck here. I still kind of like A Whole New World, but I miss that start, that urgency. Here, it just is a nice, pleasant flow, and it's nice, I guess, but it's not the same. So, anyways, I despise this movie, and that's why it's the fourth worst. The fifth worst is actually one I watched just a few months ago, and it's Peter Pan and Wendy. I don't have much to say about this movie because I forgot everything about it. I remember it looked nice, but the script was just void of anything good. Just a flat, boring experience, so that's why it's the fifth worst. The sixth worst is the brand new Snow White, and I wanted to like this movie, and to be fair, I liked the dwarves. They had some personality. The high horsing actually looked pretty nice. And I like the new song Waiting on a Wish, but everything else just sucked here. Like, the rest of the new songs are completely forgettable and they sound so generic. Rachel Zegler, a good actress, great singer, bad here. Just void of any charm or personality, and that haircut, what were they thinking? Gal Gadot's also really bad, and I thought the not Prince Charming character was bad, and the movie looks like shit. Mark Webb does a terrible job directing this movie, and it ends on a really embarrassing note. It's just completely unsatisfying as a whole, and I'll forget everything about this movie in a month. So that's why it's the sixth worst. The seventh worst is actually going to be 101 Dalmatians, and I like the animated movie, but it's not a favorite. But it's so much better than this. I do like Glenn Close, and I do like the idea of Home Alone with dogs, but the execution is so bland and unfunny and just completely forgettable. This is not a movie I would think about or watch ever again. And then we've got The Little Mermaid, and I love the original movie. Great story, great characters, great song, And it's kind of scary, actually. Like, Ursula taking in Ariel's voice, it gets under my skin, and the big climax is thrilling. And this movie is just void of that. These movies lack any bit of an edge. I thought the CGI looked really bad, and they took an 80-minute long movie and turned it over 2 hours, and you feel it. It's less effective, it's less efficient, and it just makes for a baffling watch. But, oh, and the scuttlebutt is horrendous. But I do want to give this movie some credit. I do like the way they wrote Eric Heel. The fact that Ariel longs for land and Eric longs for the sea was a terrific addition. And I do think Halle Bailey has a very nice singing voice. And some of... actually, just part of your world is still a very nice moment. So, a couple decent things, but still so much terribleness surrounding it. And then we've got one of my hottest takes. And we've got the Jungle Book 2016. I do like the fact that this movie gives the classic movie more structure, but in its execution, it just fell flat. All the issues I have with The Lion King are applicable here. The animals can't emote. And there's a scene where Baloo is like, that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And it just comes across soulless. And it's just not a good looking movie. Like, the environments are brought to life well, but there's not a single shot that stays with you. And I just thought it was a very difficult watch, and the weird kind of musical approach, awful. Like when Christopher Walken starts singing I Want to Be Like You, it does not belong in this movie whatsoever. So that's why it's number 15. Number 14 was a disappointment because I have always defended this movie, and I have to admit I was wrong. Alice in Wonderland. Now, to be fair, I like how they're trying to turn this story into a Narnia-like storyline, and Danny Elfman's score is terrific. But Johnny Depp gives his second worst performance ever here. He is so annoying and I hate him. The movie is filled with hideous makeup and costumes and CGI, and it just makes for a very unpleasant watch. And that final dance scene made me want to die. So that's why it's at number 14. Number 13 is Alice Through the Looking Glass. And Johnny Depp gives his worst performance ever here. He is truly insufferable to watch. A 0 out of 10 performance. The makeup is hideous. Some of the CGI is really ugly. The entire story about Mad Hatter being sad about his family is the dumbest fucking plot ever. And trying to get you to sympathize with the Red Queen, they actually turned all the good characters into scumbags. And yeah, like, it's bad. But that said, there are some cool visuals, like the waves of time. And I really like the final 20 minutes. Like, the visuals of everything just turning to dust is so cool. And I actually cared, and there were stakes, and it was thrilling and emotional, and I wish the rest of the movie was that good. It ends on the strongest note of all, but it doesn't redeem the rest of the movie. So that's why it's number 13. But now, we're at the point where I like the rest of the movies that I'm going to mention. So number 12 is the 1994 The Jungle Book, directed by Stephen Sommers. Well, I like the adventurous vibe of this movie. You can tell that they shot it on location, and I do like how they kind of turned this story into Tarzan. That was a good decision. But it's still a pretty bland movie, and it's not one I see myself watching again. Number 11 is 102 Dalmatians, and I'll admit I have so much nostalgia for this movie, but it's still pretty alright. Like, it can be campy. When Ella turns into Cruella and the shoulders pop out and her nails get long, come on, that's funny. When she gets turned into a cake, it's funny. Like, there are some good slapstick here. I do like the fact that the dogs have personality, but the human actors, aside from Glenn Close, who, by the way, is good here, but everyone else is bad, and the movie is bland. It's overlong, so it's nothing special, but what can I say? I have a soft spot for it. Number 10 is Maleficent. And I do like the fact that it takes a classic story and gives us a new twist. That way, I can watch this movie alongside Sleeping Beauty and still experience two different movies. I do like some of the visual effects, some of the music is great, and Angelina Jolie gives a great performance, but the execution of everything is just fine. It's enjoyable enough, but there's nothing great here. Number 9 is one I wasn't expecting, and it's The Lady and the Tramp. Like, I thought I would hate this movie. But I didn't. I thought Justin Theroux and Tessa Thompson did a great job, and I thought the movie was cute and sweet and charming and romantic and even emotional at times. It reminded me of Toy Story in a very good way, and if I'm being honest, it has sat really well with me. The movie's pretty ugly to look at, and it's nothing new or nothing great, but it's far better than you would expect it to be. So that's why it's number 9. Number 8 is Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. And I just like how unexpected this weight is. It explores genocide in a very effective way, and the moments that need to have weight have weight. The moments that need to have emotion have emotion. And the thrilling moments are thrilling. The CGI is really good, and I thought Angelina Jolie, Elle Fanning, and Michelle Pfeiffer gave great performances. But the second act drags so badly, and it does feel bloated and messy as a result. So it's a movie I recommend, but it's not great. Number 7 is The Sorcerer's Apprentice, and it just feels like a fun blockbuster. Jay Baruchel does a really good job. I like his personality. Nicolas Cage is really good, but it's Alfred Molina who's the standout. He's terrific in this movie, and I also liked Teresa Palmer. You've got solid visuals, solid action, a solid romance, some cool world building, and it's just a very enjoyable movie. So that's why it's number 7. Number 6 is Christopher Robin, and I just love how it's Hook but with Winnie the Pooh. There's a good movie here about growing up and losing your inner child, and I thought it just came through beautifully. It's a very heartfelt and sincere movie, and I love these characters so much. Ewan McGregor does do a great job, but the business plot does end on a really stupid note, but it's still number 6. Number 5 is Pete's Dragon, and this is also just a pleasant, sincere, heartfelt, charming movie. It is so emotional and enjoyable to watch, and I thought the cast did a really good job, and the CGI is really good. I like the unique design of the dragon, and it's a movie that really works for me. And I do like the soundtrack. Number 4 might surprise you, but it's Beauty and the Beast. Now, I should hate this movie. I should. Like, it's not as good as the animated original, and it is filled with CGI, and the movie shouldn't work. But it does. I love the original movie, I love the story, I love the characters, and that carries through here. It just captures the spirit of the original so perfectly, and I thought the cast all did a really great job. I love this version of the songs, especially that little additional bit in Gaston. But Be Our Guest is great. Be our guest, be our guest, be our guest. Put that napkin around your neck, sure we and will provide the rest. Just such a fun song, and I laughed, I smiled, I cried. It just, it has all the same issues as some of the other Disney live action movies. The difference here is that you can tell that they truly cared about the original, and it worked for me. And some of the additions are unneeded, but I thought Evermore was a wonderful standout. So I do kind of love this movie. Number 3 is going to be a hot take, but it's Dumbo. And I just thought Tim Burton did a great job here. It is visually stunning. The sets, the costumes, the CGI, and I love how this movie has a circus aesthetic, a steampunk aesthetic, and this creepy funhouse aesthetic. And they all really stand out for me. I like how the first half is a remake, but the second half is entirely new material, but it still captures the spirit of the original. I thought the characters were delightful, the cast did a great job, there's real emotion present, and it felt personal to Tim Burton. I really do think this movie is underrated, and I hope it gets re-evaluated in the public eye one day. Number 2 is Cinderella, and look, I am not a big fan of the original movie. I think it's fine. But this movie does that story so much better here. It's just pure Disney magic, and there's moments that are breathtaking and that really work for me emotionally. I thought the costume design was exceptional. I thought the cast did a great job, especially Lily James. I liked how Prince Charming has more character here, and it's just truly a beautifully done story. It's just a movie that took everything about the original and improved upon it. And it's a movie that just hits me in the feels every time. So that's why it's number 2. But my favorite one of the bunch is Cruella. And this movie to me is just so much fun to watch from beginning to end. It's filled with energy and personality, and Craig Gillespie just elevates this movie in every sense. The costumes are magnificent. And I thought the use of the soundtrack added plenty to this movie, and the score by Nicholas Portel is so good. I thought Emma Stone gave an Oscar-worthy performance here. First of all, she looks incredible, but I also like how charming and cool and badass she is. I like how she plays Estella. I love how she plays Cruella. I love how she plays Cruella pretending to be Estella. Just lots of nuance there. I thought Emma Thompson gave a really great performance as well. Paul Walter Hauser, Joy Fry, and Mark Strong stand out. And I love how this movie is constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. It never feels stagnant, and I like how it can be part Ocean's 11, part The Devil Wears Prada, but it always feels like its own thing entirely, and it just feels like a really fresh take on this character. Like, it's not technically an original movie, but it feels original, and it feels like a vision brought to life perfectly, and it's a movie I could watch in any mood. So I know some people don't care for it, but I love it. I think it's a perfect movie, and that's why it's number one. And yes, one movie that was not on this list is Mufasa the Lion King, and it's because I refused to watch it. I actually had a friend who told me it was amazing and I had to watch it. And if I'm being honest, my reaction was, no thanks, I'm good. So yes, that's why that one's not on this list. And I don't know how many more I'm actually going to watch because I think I'm going to skip Lilo and Stitch as well. But anyways, that was my ranking. What's yours? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos soon. And Gavin, out.